from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. Great to be with all of y'all this morning. We've got a packed show this Thursday, November 21st, 2024. What a packed show we have for all y'all today, including some new cyber attacks and the failures of the federal government and the rumors that maybe, there's congressmen and senators talking out of their wazoos about how maybe CISO should be eliminated, etc. So we're going to get into all of that over the next few weeks as we fight for cybersecurity on the federal level. So we'll get into all of that. Thank you all for tuning in. Guess what I have this morning? An espresso. That's right. I've changed locations, and in my change of location, apparently the new hotel I'm staying at actually has an espresso machine in the room. So I can't tell you the joy I had last night when walking into this room and I see an espresso machine. Just the joy inside. So join me for a coffee cup cheers this morning, y'all. Coffee cup cheers. So good. All right, I'm gonna take one more sip because really it's Thursday and I've been traveling. So I haven't had a sip with you Tuesday or Wednesday. I got to make up for it. Coffee cup cheers again. Oh, the best people on the planet are the people that are on this podcast commenting. All right, let's go ahead and get the show rolling. Finastra, for their end, are confirming and warning customers of a cybersecurity incident that occurred on November 7th when an attacker compromised credentials and accessed one of Finastra's secure file transfer platform systems. The firm said it's investigating. It started an investigation so far with a third party and external cybersecurity experts. The firm's software services include lending solutions, payment processing, cloud-enabled retail, and banking platforms, as well as risk management tools. Brian Krebs of Krebs on Security first reported that Finastra suffered a security breach after seeing a data breach notification sent to an impacted person. The attack is believed to be linked to a recent post on a hacking forum, also by a threat actor named Abiso, claiming to be selling 400 gigabytes worth of data stolen from the firm. When asked on the forum post, a Finastra spokesperson would neither confirm nor deny if the data belonged to them. However, they are notifying people. Finastra Security Operations Center, according to Finastra, said they detected suspicious activity related to an internally hosted secure file transfer platform they use to send files to certain customers. And again, that's really, really common. For those who don't know the financial industry, SFTP is very, very common and acceptable. And if you take away the S, it's just a file transfer protocol, a file transfer platform. But they added the S kind of secure because it's an SSL IPsec tunnel. And that doesn't always mean security, unfortunately, because most SFTP, by the way, can be MFA enabled in some cases. So depending on how old it is, it can be MFA enabled. In some cases, it's built on a one trust platform. So it doesn't have any of the zero trust principles that apply to it because it's set up once and that's pretty much it. And then anytime you got to refresh it, it's a real task. So seeing this kind of happen to SFTP maybe will help kind of change the stuff there. Though the means of initial access are unknown, reports from threat monitoring platforms highlighted the firm's lackluster vulnerability management strategy, noting it was using older versions of Pulse Secure VPN and Citrix servers, according to what people saw. This isn't the first time Finastra suffered a data breach. They also had one back in 2020 with ransomware actors. So we'll keep you appraised as to this. And obviously next week, we'll kind of hopefully have a little bit more information. And again, the folks over at Finastra are working hard to take care of this. I know they have a bug bounty program, by the way. That's not something that's mentioned here, but like from a vulnerability management, I know they had an internal and external bug bounty program at Finastra. I know that because I've spoken to people who were part of that bug bounty program. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with the characterization here that they don't know what they're doing in lackluster vulnerability management strategy. Kind of disagree with that. The moment you have an internal and external bug bounty program is the moment you actually have a good vulnerability management and discovery strategy. So I'm sorry there. We'll agree to disagree. A French hospital that is unnamed exposed the medical records of nearly 700 150,000 patients after a threat actor gained access to its electronic patient record system. The threat actor uses the nickname NEARS, previously Near2LG, claims to have attacked multiple healthcare facilities in France, alleging they have access to the patient records of over 1.5 million people. The attacker claims they breached Mediboard by Software Medical Group, a company offering electronic patient record solutions across Europe. In a letter, excuse me, folks. In a letter sent to French media and shared with Bleeping Computer by Lemeg IT editor-in-chief Valeria Rib-Markive, Software Medical Group says the exposed data was not directly managed by them, but rather hosted by the hospital. So it remains unclear. Obviously, this is French, and while my French, I can read French, I'm gonna bury you my French accent this morning, other than to say bonjour et comment allez-vous. We can confirm. They're saying that they can confirm their software is not responsible, but rather a privileged account within the client's infrastructure was compromised by an individual who exploited, excuse me, wow, that attack by an individual who exploited the standard function of the solution. So, and again, this kind of goes down to, if you didn't host the data, identity is the new perimeter, right? And that's why, if you go check out our Substack, I did a whole thing on Saturday around identity, right? Identity is the new perimeter, and it all starts with identity. And so Software, for their end, they're saying, like, look, this wasn't us. It's kind of like the Snowflake incident, right? Snowflake wasn't breached. A bunch of customers on Snowflake had accounts with no MFA, and so they were compromised. And 100 and some odd accounts of Snowflake customers were compromised in that data breach. The same could be applied here. Software is saying, look, it's not our infrastructure. They simply had a privileged account that wasn't properly secured. They got access to that privileged account and gained access to and got access to the data. That's not really on us. And this kind of goes back to, remember early on in the cloud days, we used to talk about the shared responsibility model. Well, there's a shared responsibility model in identity. So if I manage the identity, but then you're tracking the identity, right? You're tracking the logs of people coming in. At what point is it your responsibility to identify irregular movement within your software? Because I can't put anything on your technology. If I'm using you as a SaaS product, I'm really, trusting you to host it, and I'm managing the access. But who's monitoring irregular activity on the account? And that's something that's yet to be really resolved, or maybe I'm just blind to it. Simply because I'm in the energy industry, and that's fairly non-SaaS at the moment. So maybe I'm blind to it. So if I'm missing something here, please let me know in the comments. Please comment below wherever you're watching, whether it be X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. Just let me know, or go to our Substack and just join the chat and let me know there. So there's that. And folks, we're at the end of November, so everyone's putting out their 2024 list. MITRE did theirs as well. The 25 most common and dangerous software weaknesses behind more than 31,000 vulnerabilities that were disclosed between June 2023 and June 2024. Software weaknesses defined by MITRE are flaws, bugs, vulnerabilities, and errors found in software code, architecture, implementation, or design. To create this year's ranking, MITRE scored each weakness based on its severity and frequency after analyzing 31,770 CVEs records for vulnerabilities that would benefit from remapping analysis, and reported across 2023 and 2024 within the dates of June, right? So June to June, that was the fiscal year that they used there. Organizations are strongly encouraged to review the list and use it to inform their software security strategies. So let's talk about that. The top 5. In number 5, path traversal. In number 4, cross-site request forgery. Number 3, SQL injections. Number 2, out-of-bounds write. And the top 1, cross-site scripting, that had a score of almost 57. And that's up a spot. Cross-site forgery up 5 spots from the last list. Path traversal up 3 spots. What dropped? Well, use after free dropped 4 spots. It was in the top 5 last year. It's now number 8. If you look what came up, number 11 jumped up 12 spots is code injection. My expectation, code injection will likely be in the top list next year. Another major dropper from the top 10 was improper input validation. So that was in the top 10 last year. It's now not there. But if you look at a bounds read, OS command injection, use after free, missing authorization, and unrestricted upload of file with dangerous types, that rounds up the top 10. And obviously, exposure of sensitive information to an unauthorized actor. That's number 17. That's up. That wasn't even on the list last year. And then we see null pointer the reference that dropped 9 points almost out of the and integer overflow or wraparound that also dropped. So we're starting to see kind of some of the secure by design initiatives really take place, and you're starting to see some of those drop, but you're also seeing new ones come up. So something to keep in mind here. We'll have this on our Substack. The whole list will be available on our Substack, so go check it out there as well. Let's get into some dysfunction around cybersecurity in the federal government, because Lord, oh Lord, some of these reports by the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, are just absolutely troubling and kind of shows you that cybersecurity needs to be centralized under one agency, preferably CISA, since cybersecurity is literally the first initial in their name, and let them run with it and leave all the other ones to do what they're supposed to do, but not talk about cyber. So HHS has faced challenges mitigating cybersecurity risks in the healthcare sector, according to a report published Thursday by the Government Accountability Offices. They say the department hasn't implemented policies previously recommended by the government watchdog, including tracking industry adoption of ransomware-specific cyber practice or assessing risk from IoT or OT devices. Until the HHS fills those gaps, the department could be unable to effectively lead the industry in cybersecurity. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. That's the thing. They shouldn't be. Cybersecurity for critical infrastructure literally lies within CISA. So HHS just needs to say, we don't know what the heck we're doing here, right? We're healthcare people. We're not cyber people. So we're just going to partner with CISA. CISA is going to establish it, and we're going to be the body that audits to ensure compliance with the CISA standards. And that's how it's supposed to be done. And hopefully, whoever the new cybers are in the White House will be, whether it remains to be Harry Cocker or Ann Neuberger, or potentially someone else, we're able to influence those folks. Despite the HHS stated efforts to limit the sector's cyber risks, the department hasn't put in place policies that could help the industry improve its security, according to the watchdog. Regulators found several examples of where they say the HHS faced challenges mitigating risks, especially around ransomware and OT and IoT. So the kind of the HHS hospitals reported adopting nearly 71% of practices under the NIST framework to detect, respond, and recover from cyber attacks, but that's simply not enough. There's a requirement there to do that. HHS has not responded to the report or this article as the time it was published. While the U.S. Coast shore cranes come with built-in vulnerabilities that enable remote access and control, urging operators across the country to adopt enhanced security protocols. Crane manufacturers by state-owned Chinese companies account for nearly 80% of all heavy-lift gantry cranes used to load and unload container ships at American ports. 80%, folks. Their design can include remote control, Coast Guard said in a Tuesday notice. A February executive order gave the Coast Guard new authorities to help improve cyber conditions at ports nationwide. So now the Coast Guard is in on cybersecurity, folks. There's just more to go around. Inefficiencies. Doge, where are you? TSA is also not monitoring transportation sector efforts to stop ransomware, again, according to the GAO office. So HHS, now TSA, yep, the same people that tell you to take your laptop out, take off your belt, and pat you down with the back of their hands are apparently still somehow have some sort of cybersecurity authority. The U.S. government on Tuesday laid 4 of the 6 recommendations made to TSA since 2018 have not been addressed, including one centered around the agency's effort to protect companies from ransomware. For example, according to the GAO, in January of 2024, ransomware was having increasingly devastating impacts in the transportation sector, and found the TSA security directive did not align with ransomware leading practices, according to Tina Wan Sherman, Director of Homeland Security and Justice at the GAO. GAO recommends that DHS determine the extent to which the transportation system sector is adopting leading security practices to help reduce the risks. As of November 2024, this recommendation was not yet implemented. DHS, led by one of the worst DHS secretaries on the planet, Alexander Mayorkas. This guy could go down as the worst DHS secretary in the 20 years this agency has existed, right? Has absolutely done nothing around cyber. The appointment of Jen Easterly may be the only thing that's a good thing that the DHS has done. Outside of that, There's just an absolute mess, complete and absolute dysfunction. And obviously, these reports show just that. You can go check out our Substack, jamesazar.substack.com, for all the latest. Subscribe there. Get this very podcast for free on the platform, as well as all the latest news and takeaways. And obviously, our Saturday article, Tackling Identity Security, Avoiding the Hype, Challenges and Best Practices, when we address human and non-human and some of the practices around how to properly manage those in your environment. We'll move to some very quickly, some vulnerabilities patching up here. Oracle announced patches for their high-severity information disclosure vulnerability in their agile product life cycle management. That's being exploited in the wild, so you want to make sure you get that addressed. That's the one we talked about yesterday, CVE 2024-212-87 with version 9.3.6. Exploitation attempts have been seen for 2 recently patched Citrix session recording vulnerabilities. The vulnerabilities CVE 2024-8068 and 8069 were discovered by researchers at Watchtower, which made public technical details and proof of concept exploits just last week. Watchtower describes the vulnerability as affecting the Citrix virtual apps and desktop virtualization solution, and warned it could allow unauthenticated remote code execution. Citrix has in fact released an advisory on the same day the company made its findings public. The company's advisor initially referenced Citrix virtual apps and desktops, but it later updated to clarify the issue impacted the session recording component. Patches are available. You want to make sure you get those addressed as well. A password spraying attack yielded prolific results for attackers across multiple sectors in North America and Europe during Q2 and Q3, according to Trellix. The attack surface for password spray attacks is vast. Trellix found attackers commonly targeted cloud-based systems, including Microsoft 365, Okta, Google Workspace, VPNs, Windows Remote Desktop, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure. Attackers most frequently targeted password spray attacks at education, energy, and transportation organizations during the 6-month period, according to the report. So that's something to keep in mind. And by the way, most of those are not being monitored, right? So you want to make sure you've identified those policies. And finally, good guys prevail as, again, we continue to see the prosecution of members of cybercrime groups. The Justice Department unsealed charges against 5 men accused of running the Scattered Spider cybercrime group that allowed them to steal employee credentials, gain access to sensitive data, and pilfer millions of dollars. They're also responsible for the MGM casino. We knew that was coming. A UK national, 22-year-old Tyler Robert Buchanan, and 4 Americans were named in the indictment. Those 4 Americans are Ahmad Hussam El-Adin El-Bodawi, 23, of College Station, Texas; Noah Michael Urban, 20, of Palm Coast, Florida; Evans Unaka Osabidu, Osibu, of Dallas, Texas; and Joel Martin Evans of Jacksonville, North Carolina. The 4 Americans are charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy, 1 count of aggravated identity theft. Each is facing up to 25 years in federal prison. So all in all, the members of a loosely organized, again, the decentralized nature of it brings them all together, the most unlikely bunch. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern, live here with all the latest and greatest. Until then, have a great weekend, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.